regarding me, I think you guys know me, maybe not. My name is Hanshika Herath. Uh, as the background, I completed my bachelor's in Subrugam University and one master's from Colombo University and another one from UK. At the moment, I'm doing my PhD in New Zealand, and this is my last couple of months. So I'm not doctor yet, probably end of this year. And I hope you can hear me. Unfortunately, I'm suffering from fever, so I don't know whether it is my voice is clear for you.
It is.
And is it clear, right? Is
Yes,
it?
yes, yes.
All right, that's great. And in my research background, mainly in hospitality, and it's more sociological background rather than management. My bachelor's and the master's, I did hospitality and tourism related research related to management, and I was purely quantitative research at that time. But after enroll with my PhD program, I decided to changed my path, and now I'm here qualitative researcher in hospitality. So my research background is specifically in hospitality, and I discuss hospitality experiences, emotional labor, and presentation of self. So those are the major research areas for me. And Surangas asked me to do this qualitative research workshop because I know even in Sri Lanka, even most of the other universities, most of the tourism and hospitality researchers, they basically focus on quantitative approach. And there are lots of researchers, lots of lecturers who can discuss regarding quantitative approaches. But the qualitative researchers actually, it is very less amount at the moment. Not only in Sri Lanka, even our universities in Auckland as well, we got a very less number of qualitative researchers. This is mainly because people have that myth that they think doing a research in qualitative approach is hard. Actually, from my viewpoint, it is hard, it takes time, but it is not impossible. It is very interesting to doing a research in qualitative approach. Uh, and the other thing is that in today, what I'm going to discuss, it is not like very formal type of a lecture because I don't know your background at all. I don't know whether you have already started your research or which stage are you in, or you already decided which approach that you're going to take, qualitative, quantitative. I don't know anything about your background. So I will briefly tell you what are the differences in this quantitative and qualitative approaches. So if you want to do a research related to qualitative, what you have to focus on. And the other thing is that I will share my screen after some time. But if any case, if you have any question to ask, please do ask in any language, English or Sinhala, any language, so then I can answer. And before I start, can someone say which year are you in, and what is the progress so far in your research? Can someone please give me some kind of a idea uh, regarding where you are in your research at the moment, please?
Right now, we are in the master's level. We have completed our postgraduate in tourism, economics, and hotel management. So
Mm-hmm.
we are on the second year. We have completed the first semester in the master's as well. Right now,
Okay.
we are into our research. Like it's been like 2 months that we have started our research.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, we are analyzing the problem, so the problem analysis and the methodology. So we are in between the literature review and the kind of the conceptual framework kind of thing. So collectively, we are there. So if we
Mm-hmm.
tell about the crowd here, like there are academics, hoteliers, ex-hoteliers, and very few military background people as well, and mostly academics in our
Mm-hmm.
group.
All right. Okay. Okay. So that means you all already got your research topic. Am I correct?
Yes.
You know, what's your research area is, right?
Yes.
So basically, when you want to do a research, the first thing is that you have to do a very good literature review, and you have to see what's the gap in knowledge. So that's why we do literature study sometimes, like in my case, in my first 6 months of the PhD, actually, what I did, it's like continuously reading, because when you read, you can understand what are the areas that you have to focus on. Because no point of doing a research that already done by someone. So you have to find a new area. To find a new area, you have to definitely read a lot and understand the gap in knowledge. So in that case, it is very important to find research articles. So when you do this literature review, actually, please try your best to find last 10-year research papers. So I know one of the most biggest weakness in Sri Lanka is most of the students, they cannot find a very good research papers. You have to pay for the articles. But I don't know what's the background at the moment. Maybe you can ask from Suranga sir, is there any chance that you can find or that you can access through University of Colombo? Because a couple of students, they contacted me and asked me to download some research papers, because in New Zealand everything, I mean, we can access to any journal without paying any dollar. So that's why we have enough resources, so we can download all the recent research articles and read. So it is necessary to read. That's the first part. When you read further, you can see different views, contradictory views, argument of different researchers. So based on that, you have to establish your research aim. So when you establish your research aim, you have to have very good understanding regarding what approach you're going to employ, maybe quantitative, maybe qualitative. So in the aim, if you can specifically mention that, that would be really easy for examiner or the readers to understand what is your studies about. For an example, just imagine that if your study is related to grounded theory, I will explain what grounded theory is. So if you can mention that in the aim, it is very easy for the reader to understand, even in the beginning, what is your studies about. So to go to that level, it is necessary to understand the approach. That's why this quantitative and the qualitative thing comes. So that's the first part. Read a lot and establish your research aim. So then after that, you can establish your research objectives and research questions. In the University of Colombo, there must be a formal structure. Please follow that structure. I can't remember that much, but my thesis is there in the library. And also, as I can remember, my thesis is already available online as well in ResearchGate if you want to find it. So you have to develop your aims, objectives, and research questions. And then a very good theoretical overview in your literature review chapter. So then after that, when you come to your methodology chapter, also we known that one as research design. So the research design methodology, that means the same chapter. So in that chapter, you have to specifically mention that what is the approach, qualitative or quantitative, what is your paradigm is, and your methodology and the methods. I will share the presentation with you, but keep that in your mind. Actually, this presentation, the same presentation I did like a couple of months ago, I did this presentation to another group of University of Colombo master students. So this presentation is a little bit broad, so don't worry about these things, everything, because you still got time to understand all that things. So don't worry if you cannot understand everything in that presentation. I will briefly explain what you should know. Give me a second. I want to find that. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, yes, we can see you. We can see that.
Okay. Okay, in the qualitative research, actually the most important thing, important part in qualitative research is we analyze and we try to generate in-depth understanding regarding a particular subject matter. So it's like in-depth study. It is not like quantitative research, basically in quantitative research, what we do, before we go to the field to collect data, we have independent variables and dependent variables in quantitative research. And then after that, we measure whether these independent and dependent variables, whether they have interrelationships. And we develop hypotheses, and at the end, we test it and we prove it whether these hypotheses are acceptable level or whether we can accept it or not. That's what we do in quantitative research. But in qualitative research, that is totally different. We are going to the field without having, I don't say zero understanding, but we cannot predetermine our findings in qualitative research. But in quantitative research, the researchers, they predetermine all the findings. For an example, my master's, Columbia University master's thesis, it is pure quantitative research. It is related to emotional labor in commercial hospitality. Before I went to the field, I developed a model, and in that model I identified different variables like individual variables and organizational variables, and individual variables 8 variables and organizational variables 6 variables. So altogether 14 variables. Before I went to the field, I knew that out of these 14 variables, some variables are related to emotional labor, some may not. So that means my findings are predetermined before I go to the field. But in qualitative research, we cannot predetermine our findings. We are going to the field with open mind. So that's why it is in depth. But in quantitative, it is limited to a certain area. So that's why it is interesting to do a qualitative research, because after your field work, you can come up with very interesting and exciting ideas, and you can generate a very in-depth knowledge. So that's why, especially research studies related to hospitality and tourism, I encourage as much, if we can do more qualitative research, that is really important. Because hospitality, from my perspective, because at the moment I'm doing my research at the end of my PhD journey, I want to be a sociologist because my research background is entirely social science and sociology. And in that perspective, from sociological perspective, for me, hospitality and tourism is very uh, like it's everything is in hospitality and tourism based on host guest interactions, isn't it? Or tourist and community interaction, or the community participation. Likewise, people component is very vital in hospitality and tourism. So from sociological perspective, for me, hospitality is social science. It is not management. Management also there. For an example, in a hotel, management part also there. But if you go in depth, you can see a broader sociological aspects in this hospitality and tourism. So in that case, if you can do a qualitative research, you can generate more knowledge. So doing a research, actually, you may have different purposes. For an example, someone just want to do your research just to pass this master's program and get the paper qualification. But someone may want to do a research and do more publications, or maybe in the future, having some ideas to join the PhD programs. So likewise, it entirely depends on your objective or your aim. So if you really want to be a very good researcher in hospitality and tourism, so you have to have a good understanding about different approaches and identify the most suitable approach for your study. And also you have to think about your capacity and the limitations of that study as well to do a qualitative research. So in qualitative research, you can identify a particular case study or case study area. For an example, in my master thesis, it is quantitative actually, but it's like as I can remember, it's a case study, I guess. So yes, I did it with a couple of case studies. Yes. So if you do a qualitative research, you can use the same thing. You can do a case study. Case study may be single or multiple. For an example, you can do uh, guest experiences in resort hotels in down south New Zealand. Oh, sorry, down south in Sri Lanka. Likewise, so that means the down south in Sri Lanka, is a case study. Or otherwise, you can find different locations. Then you can do your interviews at Tango or Ella or Candy likewise. So if you choose different locations, it is multiple case study approach. Likewise, you have to identify what is the strategy or methodology that you're going to use. Then after that, you have to think about how you're going to collect data and who are the participants, what is the sampling strategy. Likewise, there are plenty of things to think about. But before you think about those things, please finalize your approach, whether you want to do this study in a quantitative approach or qualitative approach. Okay. So do you have any questions before I go to the next slide? Hello.
No, ma'am.
All right. Thank you very much. Uh, okay. So these are the major differences between qualitative and quantitative. Quantitative research, few variables and many cases. So as I said before, in my study also, I got both dependent and independent variables, and I did lots of interviews based on five-star hotels in Colombo. So likewise, you got few variables in quantitative studies, but many cases. Many cases mean quantitative research if you do it with the questionnaire. So sometimes you distribute the questionnaire to 500 people, 1,000 people, 1,500 if you do a survey likewise. So that means your sample size is very big in quantitative research. But in qualitative, few cases, but many variables. For an example, in my PhD thesis, I did only 28 interviews for my thesis. But even that 28 interviews, my university said when I initially, before I go to the field, we have to provide all that information. So when in my proposal, I mentioned that I will do 30 interviews, but university said, please don't do that. Do only 20. If you do 30, it's going to be really hard for you to do analysis. But I was so greedy for my data, and I did 28 interviews. And that interviews are like 1.5 hours, 2 hours. But that's true. It's too much of data at the end of the day. So for my data analysis, it took me nearly 1 year to do my data analysis. So that's the nature of qualitative research. Few cases, that means few number of participants, but many variables. So my research is very, very in-depth, and lots of different concepts, theories come up now in my research. So that's the nature of qualitative research. And there are different approaches of doing qualitative research. For an example, in mine, it's a grounded theory study. You can do a phenomenological study by interviewing like 2 participants, 3 participants, likewise. Because in qualitative, we don't worry about the number of participants. We worry about the in-depth. We worry about the quality of your data. But in quantitative, number is very important. So it must be a high number. And maybe you're going to test few variables. So those are the major differences in quantitative and qualitative. I'll skip this one. So in quantitative, mostly assumptions, as I said before you go to the field, you already predetermined your findings because you already got your variables, independent or dependent variables. But qualitative, you cannot predetermine your findings. You don't know what will come up at the end of the day. So you have to go to the field with having very open mindset. Uh, and in quantitative study, actually, you can generalize your findings. Generalize your finding mean, just imagine that I did a research and I got a couple of variables and I'm going to test those variables and I'm going to interview some hotel employees working in Candy. Okay, that means my sample is based on Candy hotels. So, and now I got some very amazing findings. If I do this research, the same research in down south, okay? So in quantitative, we believe that we can come up with kind of a similar uh, findings. So that's what we can, what we say generalizability, generalization. So that means you You can do the same research in different contexts, and you can come up with kind of a similar ideas. But in qualitative research, you can't generalize, because qualitative research actually, from social science perspective, it's it's totally, I mean, if I interview 10 people, their ideas are totally different, because I'm going to the field without predetermining my uh, findings. For an example, just imagine that in my study, I mean, I'm going to do a research and I'm going to interview guests in resort hotels. So uh, I got two different approaches, first quantitative and qualitative. In the quantitative one, I identified 5 variables, and I'm studying about guest satisfaction. A very simple example, okay? So in the 5 variables are service quality, interpersonal relationship between employees, price, facilities, and another one. Okay, just imagine that I got another one. So now I have 5 variables, and I'm going to interview, or I'm going to distribute a questionnaire to uh, guests in selected 10 hotels in somewhere called Candy. Okay, so now I distributed my questionnaire, and now I can see how they uh, how they provide their information or insights regarding related to the variables that I already developed. That's my quantitative approach. At the same research, in qualitative way, what I'm going to do, I'm going to choose 10 guests from 5 different hotels, and I'm going to do interviews with them, and I'm going to discuss with them regarding their experiences or regarding their satisfaction in that particular hotels. So now this is totally different. If I do a qualitative, I can give more chance for the participants to open their heart and give more information for me to do my research. But in quantitative approach, I just allow them to think about 5 different variables that I already developed. So that means I limited their perception. I limited already their uh, insights to a specific variables. So that's the difference in qualitative and quantitative. So in that way, qualitative studies, it is very hard for us to generalize. Okay, because if I do 10 interviews with a hotel guest, they can come up with totally different ideas. Someone could say this is very excellent experience in this hotel, but someone could say no, facilities are not enough for us, we are not happy with this one, that one, likewise. Okay, so it's different. With another example, just imagine that now in these days with this COVID thing, you have online lectures. So different lecturers from different countries, maybe in Sri Lanka or India, Canada, New Zealand, likewise. Now different lecturers are doing lectures for you online. Okay, so if Suranga sir wanted to do a survey and see whether um, if Surang sir wanted to do a survey and see the satisfaction level of the student or the satisfaction of the students regarding these online lectures. So you can give different ideas to different lecturers, right? Someone could say, yes, my lecture today would be a very good one. Someone could say, no, it's boring. Likewise, different ideas will come out because people are different. Our insights, our worldviews, the way we think, our perceptions are different. So in that way, qualitative research, it is very hard for us to generalize. Okay, and the quantitative research actually, the researcher is not a major role in the research. For an example, in my quantitative research for my master's thesis, uh, I gave all the questionnaires to front office manager in selected hotels, and the front office manager distributed that questionnaires to hotel employees. That means my part in the data collection is I'm away from the research. But in qualitative research, I'm also co-creator of knowledge. That means I have to go to the field, I have to sit with my participants, I have to interact with them, I have to do my interviews. So I'm a major role in qualitative research. So the researcher and the participants, they have a very good interaction. Okay, so That's the major differences between qualitative and quantitative. So now you can think, okay, with these differences, what approach that suitable for your study? And the quantitative research, you can do different ways of collecting data. You can do statistical analysis. I mean, collecting data actually you can do by doing a surveys. Mainly in quantitative research, survey is the most popular thing. But the qualitative research, you can do interviews, observations. What else? So mainly in the qualitative research, most popular ways are interviews, discussion, focus group discussions, and the observations. Okay. And for the data analysis, actually, in the quantitative, you can, in nowadays, we use SPSS. So that's one of the statistical analysis software. Well, in the qualitative research, what you can do manual research analysis. So for an example, thematic analysis, or otherwise you can use in vivo. So for myself, I'm very familiar with NVivo because for my PhD thesis, actually, I employed NVivo. NVivo is not a data analysis technique. It is a data management software. So I have to enter my all data into NVivo and I manage the data, but the analysis process is actually it's manual. So in qualitative, you have that chance. You can be a part of this analysis process, although you use NVivo software. Okay.
Excuse me,
And
Miss Harshika. Yeah, so can't we do our research in a hybrid model? So that means quantitative and qualitative both.
yeah, you can. You can. For an example, uh, I did two masters. One is in UK. So in my UK masters, I use a mixed method, Conti and Colli. You can use that. It's I mean, if you use Conti and Colli, I would say for any approach easy for me. So Conti and Colli, if you use, you must have kind of a good understanding regarding both approaches, and you can do like you can analyze data with SPSS and you can explain all that data, and that's the qualitative part. So you can go in depth and explain your data. So in that way you can say your research is a hybrid or mixed method approach. Okay, any questions before I move, because otherwise I'm talking. Please let me know if you have any questions. No questions? That's very interesting, this class. Okay, shall I explain further then?
Please, please.
All right, thank you. And so as I said, there are different methods. So you can do ethnography, you can do participant observation, interview, textual analysis, focus group likewise. You can do lots. And for an example, recently I read one qualitative research paper. He's one of the giants. I mean, author is one of the giants in hospitality. He's called Peter Lugosi. So the Peter Lugasi's paper is entirely based on observations, without interviewing anyone, without doing any other focus group or anything. He was just sat in somewhere in a pub and like couple of months, and entire research is based on his observation. So that's the beauty of this qualitative research. So researcher has full authority to do a research, be a major role in this research process and develop knowledge. With moving, I hope now you know all these things in introduction chapter, how to write introduction chapter, how to write literature review, methodology, likewise. Do you have any idea? Uh, okay. Introduction chapter, basically you have to explain your problem and significance. First the topic and what is your focus, what are the research questions, your aim and objectives and limitations. And in the literature review, I would say it is known to unknown. Known to unknown mean, as I said before, in the literature review, you have to provide a very sound theoretical background related to your topic. Okay, for an example, just imagine that your qualitative research is related to guest satisfaction in hotels. Then you have to give very good understanding regarding guest satisfaction and hospitality to the reader. It is not only related to your topic, but if you talk about hospitality, you have to give understanding regarding the historical perspective of hospitality, different domains of hospitality. Likewise, you have to give very sound theoretical knowledge for the reader regarding particular subject matter. So that's why we call it as known to unknown. Unknown part is your research aim. So you have to explain all available literature related to your topic, and then you have to show, okay, although these kind of things are available, this part is missing. So that's what I'm going to do in this research and bridge the gap in knowledge. Okay, so you have to clearly show that. And then the most important chapter, your methodology. Okay, so the methodology is like, how to say,
Miss,
I will,
excuse me.
yeah,
Can I ask a question?
yeah, why not? Please.
When we doing literature review chapter, how we design, how we organize the chapter. I mean that if I read 10 research papers or a thesis, how can organize this thing into chapter?
Okay, what is your research topic, by the way? I mean, working topic?
Actually, my topic is adoption of social media marketing in tourism sector.
Adoption of social media marketing in tourism sector.
Special with a special reference to SME accommodation sector.
All right, it's a very long topic, isn't it? Okay, so what I would say, you can write down your topic first and underline the keywords. Okay, so for an example, in your topic, you can underline the social media and tourism marketing. Likewise, underline the keywords. Okay, so give me a second. I will tell you. Can you repeat the topic again, please?
Yeah, social media marketing in tourism sector with special reference to Facebook marketing among SME tourism accommodation sector.
All right. So in this one, then you have to discuss about the, I mean, for me, like if you underline these key areas, tourism sector is your umbrella term. That means you are doing your research tourism sector, and under that tourism sector or the umbrella term, you do your study basically related to social media marketing. Okay, and also SME sector. So you have to start from, I mean, this is my suggestion, but the designing of your research is totally up to you. So you can start from tourism industry, tourism sector, and you can give a very broad understanding regarding what is the meaning of tourism and what type of, I mean, in tourism, what type of things like in your study, I think it's related to marketing, and you can discuss about the destination marketing, those kind of literature, and then you can highlight how the social media is important in doing marketing of a destination. Then after that, you can discuss about the SME sector. Likewise, write your topic, underline keywords, identify your umbrella, identify the most important keyword, and then after that give priority. For an example, from my perspective related to your topic, I feel like tourism sector is the biggest, and then after that you can talk about SME, then after that you can talk about social media marketing, and afterwards SME sector.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you have a design, you prioritized your topic into, you do prioritize your themes or keywords. Now in your literature review, explain those things clearly. Start from tourism, and then after that social media marketing, and after that SME. Is that clear?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay. And in the methodology, this is a very important chapter, because just imagine that let's I will explain this one with a very simple example. Mm, like I'm from Bandaraville in Sri Lanka. Okay, so the Bandaraville to Colombo. Now just imagine that I want to go to Colombo. Then that's my aim. I want to go to Colombo tomorrow at 8 a.m. Okay, so now I have an aim. My aim is going to Colombo, and now I have to find how I can go. Okay, so I got different options. I can get the night train, or I can get into a bus, or I can hire a car. Okay, so in the aim I have to specifically understand what's my major focus area. I want to go within limited hours, or hours and doesn't matter for me? Should I focus on money that I spent? Likewise, I have to focus on what is the most important thing in my aim. So just imagine that I want to go Colombo within 5 hours. So if I take the train, it takes 12 hours. If I take the bus, it takes 7 hours. I want to go as soon as possible. Then I decided to hire a car and go into Colombo and be there at 8 a.m. Okay. So these options like going by train, bus, or a car are different ways that I can reach my destination by the time I already decided. So it's like your methodology. Okay, so the methodology, when you think about your methodology, always go to this example. Okay, how are you going to achieve your aim? So this is the part that you have to explain. Okay, this is the way that I'm going to achieve my aim. Okay, so that's why I said it is really important to have very good understanding regarding your methodology, because one day you will present your research for a larger audience. So if you say totally different thing, for an example, just imagine that. So I'm presenting my research to a big audience, and now I'm saying about my aim. So as I said, my aim is going Colombo, and I'm saying that okay, to go to Colombo, from Bandaraville to Ratnapura, I got a boat, and from Ratnapura to Colombo, I hire a car. Okay, so then now the audience, if someone knows about geographical area, so they it's going to be a problem because Bandaraville to Ratnapura, how to go by a boat? No way. So it's like methodology the same. If you mention totally wrong thing, so the audience will ask so much of questions from you. So you cannot. That's why it is important for you to have a very good understanding regarding this methodology to do a research. Okay, so it's not hard job actually. You can read more, and there are lots of YouTube videos as well. And I know this Rangus is doing lots of workshops as well. So please, before you start your research, have a very good understanding regarding different methodologies, different approaches. Then after that, you'll be totally fine. But make clear it first before you start your research. Uh, in the methodology chapter, actually, so first approach is important, qualitative or quantitative. Then after that, actually, we talk about the paradigm, ontology, epistemology, methodologies as well. But I don't know whether you have, whether you know about this area. So before I explain further, can I ask a couple of questions?
Sure, ma'am.
Yes.
Um, I mean, I hope you already completed research methodology paper. Am I correct?
Yeah, we are kind of in the middle of it right now. So like different, like each and every student are in like different stages. Some of them have done the methodology. Some of them are currently doing it.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So have you already completed that part?
Not completely.
Okay. Shall I ask a couple of questions from you if you don't mind?
Yes.
I don't know whether that lecturer who conducted that paper, whether they discuss about paradigm, ontology, epistemology, those kind of things. Can you remember?
Not that deep, I guess.
All right. So in that case, I'm not going to discuss those areas. So if I will have a chat with Rangasay, and if he want me to explain these terms again, I will do it in my next session. But in that
Sure.
case, I will ignore that part. Okay. So then I would say, please think about your approach, quantitative or qualitative. Then after that, your methodology. Okay. I will skip this part. These things are a bit serious, so I'm not going to explain these things because otherwise it's going to be a little bit hard for you. Okay, I will explain from this slide onwards. 5 different qualitatives. Now, I'm not going to discuss anything related to quantitative from hereafter. So in qualitative research, actually, you can do in different way. So the one is biographical life story and a phenomenology, a grounded theory, an ethnography, or a case study. Okay, so I'm a researcher related to a phenomenology and grounded theory. So it's based on your research topic actually. So you can, based on your research topic, you can choose which approach is easy for you to employ in your study. Maybe it's a case study, a simple case study, or you can do an ethnographical study or biographical life story by interviewing just one person and do a research entirely based on his story. Likewise, even the phenomenological study you can do with the one person, or you can do it with a couple of people or 20 respondents. Likewise, so the grounded theory, basically major idea is developing a theory and a model. So that's what I'm going to do in my PhD thesis. Ethnography, also you can choose a particular community or culture and go in depth and do a study. A case study, you try to understand a particular case, maybe a location, maybe a particular community, and do in-depth study. So these are the major 5 qualitative approaches that you can use. Okay, so in your study, definitely you have to choose one out of this. So you have to that's why, like the previous person, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask his name. He said his study is related to SME sector, so that's his case study area. Okay, so maybe he can use a specific location. I don't know, but he can. So that's his case study area. So likewise, you have to have a good understanding regarding these approaches, and you have to choose a one approach. And biographical life story. The author tells the story of a single individual, thus providing central focus for the study. Okay, so if you want to do a biographical life story, so you can just interview one person. For an example, just imagine that there are some people who worked in hospitality in a same hotel like 20, 30 years. So these people, they're rich with knowledge, isn't it? More experiences in that same hotel. So you can interview that type of people and do a very simple way of biographical life story. It could be very interesting because with their experiences, with their knowledge, you can develop a very sound research. Okay, so simply that's what we call biographical life story. So you can do data collection through conversations, interviews, or allowing them to share their stories. Actually, this is not much popular. I don't know why. This is not much popular so far, but it doesn't matter. If you're interested, yes, you can do that. And the other one, phenomenology, it's one of my favorite actually. Uh, so you can, this is phenomenological studies are very easy to do in tourism and hospitality actually. So what you can do in phenomenological studies, you focus on lived experiences of tourism or lived experiences of people. Okay, for an example, lived experiences of tourists, guests, and as well as hosts in hotels. Likewise, lived experiences mean the moments that you experienced. Okay, maybe in the current moment, maybe past. So you can meet people and discuss regarding them, maybe related to a specific restaurant or a hotel, their experiences in that hotels. So we basically focus on moments or the experiences that they had the participants had. Even the phenomenological study, actually, the number of participants are most of the phenomenological research studies, number of participants are very less. You can do it with one participant, so 5, 6, or 20. So I think, for my understanding, so the highest number of participants, we don't know, but there could be like more other research studies. Only one study, they mentioned that 15 participants, that's the highest one that I ever met during my reading period. But there could be like more other research studies, because I haven't read all of the articles available in the world so far. But basically, the general view in the qualitative research in phenomenology, number of participants are less. The other approach is grounded theory, a bit hard, but I'm interested. Uh, in the grounded theory, actually, there are different variations like constructivist grounded theory or traditional grounded theory. So, if you want to do a grounded theory research, yes, you have to have very good understanding regarding the background of grounded theory. So, the grounded theory, what we're going to do, we develop a theory or a model. Okay, so you can do participant observation, you can do interviews, you can do focus group discussions and collect empirical data. And based on your empirical data, you develop a model or a theory. In traditional grounded theory, it says uh, there should not any literature or model, any literature or model related to that particular subject area uh, should not be available in traditional way of grounded theory. But in my case, then after that, different variations came. So now what we follow at the moment, I follow constructivist grounded theory. In that case, we say there are literature available regarding the subject matter, but related to a specific area may not. Okay, because we cannot say literatures are not available, but in traditional way of grounded theory, they are saying that some research areas, literature are not available so far. For an example, like medicine, health science, sometimes, yes, there are some very novel research areas, but in hospitality tourism, sometimes it is hard for us to say like literature is not available, because nowadays there are lots of researchers, they do number of research studies. So that's why we follow constructivist grounded theory. Don't worry when I explain all these things, because I'm explaining with my broad understanding, but it is in master's level. You can simply think about your approach and go ahead. Okay, so don't worry, don't go too in depth. Just identify your approach, quantitative, qualitative. Then after that, your design like case study, phenomenology, biography, grounded theory, or ethnography likewise. And ethnography explores cultural phenomena from the point of view of the subject of the study. So, for an example, just imagine that if you want to do a research related to Veda community in Sri Lanka, so it's an ethnographical study. Okay. Likewise, if you want to choose a specific community or a group or a culture, then after that, it could be an ethnographical study. So you can do participants observation, you can do interviews, you can go to that particular village and live with people a couple of days and observe their daily life and their daily activities and do a very interesting study in an ethnographical approach. And the case study, very easy one. You can choose, as I said in the beginning, you can choose one case study or multiple case studies. If you use multiple case studies, you have to do a comparative study. That means you have to compare different cases. But the single case study is very easy. So if you want to do a research with easy way, do qualitative case study. Okay, this is very easy, but you can do multiple case study as well. It is not also hard, but you have to put more effort. So the case study research, you focus on particular case. For an example, you can do case experiences in Ella, Sri Lanka, and you can go to Ella and meet some tourists and ask about their experiences in Ella. Okay, so now it is not the experiences in Sri Lanka, the experiences in Ella. Okay, because your case study is based on Allah. So likewise, you can do a case study research, or you can do research related to guest satisfaction in resort hotels in down south. Now your case is resort hotels in down south. Okay. Likewise, you can do a very simple study if you want to do it with case study approach. Any questions so far? No questions? This is very
Seems like it.
interesting. Okay, no one is talking. That's very strange for me, to be honest. But that's fine. At the end, I will give some time, then you can ask any questions. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's so boring for you. So if it is so boring, please let me know as well. And
Actually, ma'am, it's like we are getting the exposure from a person who knows about the qualitative research, because like rather than getting it from a lecturer or academic that we every day meet, it's really good to know the areas that you see as a researcher. So that's why like we are listening it in a very interesting way. This question will be there definitely, but maybe we'll shoot it
all
later.
right. Oh, okay, okay,
Nice.
that's
That's
fine. Okay, and I'm skipping some areas because some things are very like in depth. That's why. Okay, in the methodology, actually, you have to explain in the beginning, in the methodology chapter, please revisit your aim. That means in the beginning, you have to mention that, okay, this research aim. Okay, what is your research aim? Clearly mentioned even in the methodology chapter. It is important because when the examiner read sometimes when he reaches the methodology chapter, maybe he forgot, could be it's a very practical thing. Then if you can mention your aim in every chapter, that's very interesting. Okay, and in the methodology chapter, you have to start with your approach. You have to clearly mention that what is your approach, quantitative or qualitative. Then after that, you have to explain your methodology, whether it is case study or ethnography or grounded theory. Likewise, then after that, you have to explain your sample, what is the sample selection strategy, like purposive sampling or convenience sampling. Likewise, then what is your sample, guest or tourist in a hotel, likewise sample, and your sample size, and all that things you have to provide justifications. Okay, you cannot just like say this is a qualitative research and a case study and the sample is guest. If I'm the examiner, I definitely ask why you choose qualitative approach. You have to provide, you have to justify, and I definitely ask what's the reason to choose guest in this research. You have to justify all that things. Okay, for an example, if you want to do qualitative research, you have to read some books and justify. Okay, for an example, here at the moment, I got a Galilean tourism research book. So with me, in the Galilean tourism research book, he has clearly mentioned that qualitative is the best approach for hospitality and tourism research. So when I write my methodology, then I can say the study employed qualitative approach. In Jennings 2007 has clearly mentioned that qualitative approach is ideal for tourism and hospitality research, supporting to Jennings' understanding. Likewise, you have to provide justifications. So every strategy or approach, you have to provide justification, even your sample selection and number of participants and everything. Okay, number of participants, this is a bit tricky actually. For an example, just imagine that if your number of participants could be like 20, 30, if you choose just, I mean, if you did only 20 interviews, you can find some research articles or similar studies previously conducted with 20 or related number of participants. Then you can say in this research, John et al. Has conducted a similar study by interviewing 20 participants. So in that case, the study also believe 20 participants are enough to generate in-depth understanding. Likewise, nicely write down. Then the examiners cannot ask number of questions from you if you
Yeah,
can
excuse me,
provide.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, small clarification. So if you are willing to do it in a hybrid model, so if we take like 100, so our sample size is 100. So can we do 80 in quantitative and 20 in qualitative? So can we do like that?
Mm, it's a bit tricky actually. Because what I did in my thesis, it's not what you say, but even if your one is interesting, yes, you can, I guess.
Like
But
8.
combining that too, it's gonna be like, you have to think about it like 20. What type of, for an example, like you can do 8. This is just of my understanding. You can interview 80 hotel employees, front office employees, and
Yeah.
20 general managers. Is that what you mean?
Yes, so actually my research topic is turnover intention in hospitality industry. So my sample area is Kalutara tourist destination. So like 80 from employees and like 20 from the high-end people like executives and the HODs in the hotel. So can we do like that?
Of course, in that case, you can easily justify that as well, because you can say for the participants, like if you say like hotel employees, yes, definitely the population is very high.
Yeah.
So the out of that population, you can choose 80, but the general manager's population is not that high. So then you can say 20 or 15 would be enough for your study. Yes, you can definitely.
Otherwise, so can we do both with the same sample? Like for example, if we so if I give a questionnaire for a front office executive in a particular hotel, so after the questionnaire, can I do some kind of interview with the same person?
You can, but the problem is that how you combine those data. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
You can do, but just imagine that like you want to do 80 interviews or 100 interviews. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, not for all. So my concern is to do like 20, 25 interviews out of 100 sample size, out of 100
Yeah, you
participants.
can. Then you can justify to go in depth in this study. I mean, likewise, you can say like you wanted to generate in-depth knowledge, so you decided to extend
Yeah.
your data collection by doing some interviews. Likewise, you can justify.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
when you present your data, yes, you have to be careful, because when you present your data, maybe it's like SPSS statistical data, statistical analysis plus
Okay.
qualitative approach you have to imply.
So if we can do some kind of a hybrid model, I think we can see a good output. No, ma'am.
Yeah, because it's always nice to do like mixed methodology as well, because then you have both like quanti and the qualitative. You can with numbers you can prove your findings. At the same time, you can give in-depth knowledge by writing descriptions related to your interviews. It's a good strategy actually,
Okay. Thank you.
and a bit easy as well.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll go to the next one. Data collection methods. You can do in qualitative. It is a qualitative. Mostly we do interviews. So I think I got another slide to talk about interviews here. So when you do interviews, like just imagine that the okay, before I talk about the interviews, I will talk about pilot study. Most of the researchers, they do pilot studies. This is very famous in quantitative. For an example, just imagine that uh, even mine actually, my master's thesis one, in my questionnaire, I distributed to 10 hotel employees before I start my official data collection. I gave that questionnaire to 10 hotel employees, and then I discuss about regarding the questionnaire with them, whether they can understand the questions, and whether they can answer for my questions. Likewise, the pilot study basically it's like a rehearsal. Can you remember even in the schools, when we were in the schools before the concerts and everything, we did rehearsals. So pilot study is exactly like a rehearsal. Before you go to the field, you just talk with some other people and you distribute your questionnaire. Not for that particular sample, you can distribute it to your friends as well. If you got a questionnaire and ask whether they can understand the questions in that questionnaire. Okay. So this is very famous in quanti as well as in qualitative as well. How we can do in qualitative? It's a question, very important question. So we can do it in different way. For an example, in my PhD thesis, what I did, before I started my interviews, actually I did my interviews at Ella. So before I started my interviews, like 1 week I went to Ella, and I observed the tourist behavior and how they interact with local community. Likewise, I did observations. Sometimes I went to restaurants, hotels, scenic places, and I spent my whole day. And I wanted to be familiar with that environment, be a part of that community before I start my data collection. After a week, I was like very familiar with that environment, and then it was very easy for me to start my data collection. So the pilot study, it provides opportunity for the researcher to be familiar with your questionnaire or the interview questions or with the case study location. So if you can do a pilot study, it's really important. And data collection, actually, as I said, in the qualitative research, basically you can do interviews, face-to-face interviews. This could be in-depth interviews, semi-structured interviews, unstructured interviews, likewise. So there are different type of interviews. In my study, actually, I did in-depth interviews. That means I didn't have any questions, but I had some themes. So I guided my participants with my themes. For an example, I started like, how's your experience look like in Sri Lanka? Likewise, I asked very general questions from them. Okay, but you can develop semi-structured questions, and you can ask those questions from the participants and allow them to talk more as well. Okay, so likewise in the interviews, you can use semi-structured, unstructured, in-depth. So those are different way of doing interviews. And you can do observations as well as focus groups. Focus groups mean a particular group. Like for an example, if you want to do a community based tourism qualitative research, you can go to different families, like 5 families, and then meet them in a particular day and do a focus group. Likewise, you can do focused group study and collect collective ideas from that particular group of people. Okay, so those are the major famous way of collecting data in qualitative research. Data analysis, as I said before, you can do thematic analysis. So basically in the thematic analysis, you can do it manually. So like, I'm not going to explain that part here. If you want to do that after collecting your data, we can do another workshop, because if I explain everything now, it can be hard for you to understand. So the thematic analysis is the famous way of doing qualitative data analysis by manually. So in the thematic analysis, basically you develop codes, focus codes, categories, and you develop themes. And at the same time, we use NVivo as a data management. It's a data management software. NVivo helps us to do in-depth analysis of our qualitative data. So keep that in your mind in this stage. You can do qualitative data analysis into different way, manually and by using softwares. Manually, one way is thematic analysis. So if you want to do a software, so the way is NVivo. Ethical consideration not related to Columbia University. Limitations. Every research, there are some limitations. Okay, so even your research, even mine as well. So you have to somewhere, like in my case, I write limitation at the end in my conclusion chapter. You have to clearly mention that what are the limitations in your study. Okay, so every study there are some limitations, so don't worry about it. Sometimes some people say that your number of participants are less, or you just interview tourists, not the hotel employees. So those are the limitations. With your limitations, you can write future research direction. You can say in this study only focus on tourists, but the future researchers can do same research by interviewing hotel employees as well. So use your limitations to write your future research directions.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
what do you think about the validity of the research if it, like in this scenario, imagine like the same research was done like 1 decade ago, and like we are conducting the same research now. So what do you think about that sort of a research? Will there be a validity? I'm thinking not when it comes academically, but or maybe academically. So what do you think about that?
What do you mean, like the same research conducted before
So
and now?
maybe we'll see about if we think something about a research conducted in the hospitality sector when it comes to maybe employee retention, like they did it like 10 years back. And if I do the same one now, applying the same models and theories, maybe like, slight adjustments to the theories and the framework, um, will it be okay?
Yeah, because you can't ignore the seminal work. For an example, just imagine that. So you can when you do a research, you can find theoretical underpinning like theories. Some theories are like 50 years old. In my case, my major theory is like that researcher, that's a particular sociologist, he published that theory in 1959. So now we are into 2021. See, it's very old, but still I use in my PhD study. Lots of people they have used. It doesn't matter. But you should not based on that particular thing, you have to do modifications, because like if it is 10 year, if it is 50 year old, that means lots of changes already happen in this world, so you have to modify it. Okay, but in the quantitative study actually you can't modify because you have to imply as exactly it is. But if it is in a qualitative study you can modify. In my case also I did it. I clearly mentioned that that particular sociologist developed the theory in 1959.
Okay.
Although this research has discussed these things, there are some limitations. So likewise, you can add whatever you want to add for that particular theory.
Okay. And is it okay, or do you mind telling us like what sort of an area that you're doing for your PhD, ma'am? Like just to get an
In
idea.
my research,
Yeah.
in my PhD,
Yes.
all right, no problem. My PhD discusses, it's called hospitable encounters. So the
Okay.
inhospitable encounters, my study look at emotional elements like if when, for an example, when the tourists travel to a destination, how they present themselves and how that influence on their memories. So it's a very sociological study. So it discusses about the personal experiences, memories, critical moment that they experience, and what type of things finally when they leave the country, what type of things in their memory, maybe it's related to people or maybe it's related to food that they had or the places that they visited. Likewise, it's a very kind of a sociological study, so it's entirely discussed about human interactions and encounters.
All right. Thanks. Cool.
And I use the term social encounters, so it's not like economical encounters at hotels and restaurants. So it is very broad phenomenon, and I discuss about hospitality in the society, not at hotels or restaurants. So including hotels and restaurants as well, but it's like it's called hospitality in the society. So for an example, in my study, I argue that hospitality, as a tourist, if I walk somewhere and if I meet some locals and if they smile at me and if they talk to me, it's a part of hospitality as well. So that's what I argue in my study. So in that things, that moments I discuss as social encounters in hospitality.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Cool.
So what else? I will finish this session in 10 minutes. Then you can ask questions. So these kind of things like useful languages or writing, those kind of things, I don't think it is relevant to explain now. But when you start your writing after data collection and data analysis, so we can do another session. Then I can explain how to write your data analysis and findings chapter and your discussion chapter. I will simply give some understanding. Now you know what you have to include to methodology chapter. After methodology, you have to write your data analysis and findings chapter. Some people can do it in a one chapter like data analysis and findings. For other, some people they do it in different way like data analysis chapter, findings chapter. Data analysis chapter, you can present your data analysis. For an example, if you can do it with in vivo, you can show how you develop your codes, focus codes, categories, subcategories, likewise. And in the findings, you can explain what's your findings are. Okay. And then you have to do your discussion chapter. The discussion chapter and the literature chapter are interconnected. Okay, discussion chapter, what are you going to do? You present your study findings in summary form and you support your study findings with available literature. So when you do the discussion chapter, take a printout of your literature chapter as well. Then after that, always try to support your findings with available literature. Maybe you cannot find, because if your study is very novel, so then that's okay. You can clearly mention that no one has been conducted any research related to this topic. So likewise, but most of the time you can find some related things, maybe not related to hospitality and tourism, maybe banking sector, maybe healthcare. That's okay if you can just if you can support your argument or findings with literature. That is really important. Okay. So in that case, useful language is important, but not now, because now you are in the beginning of your research journey. In this moment, you have to focus on your research aim, your questions, objectives, and how you're going to collect data, and what is your approach, how you're going to analyze data. Afterwards, we can discuss these areas. So in this moment, you have to ask, what methods do I use? What methodologies govern my choice and use of methods? What theoretical paradigm? I think at this stage, just forget that, because I don't think your lecturers discuss about these theoretical paradigms. And the last two questions, please ignore, don't think about it. But in this stage, you have to think about what methods you're going to use, or what approach that you're going to use, and what methodology govern your research, whether you want to do case study, grounded theory, ethnography. Likewise, then after that, if you want to do a phenomenological study, how you're going to collect data, when who are the participants, how you're going to analyze data. Likewise. And methodology is one of the major areas that you have to focus on. As I said before, like if you explain, if someone asks how you reached your aim, and if you say, okay, from Bandarul to Ratnapura I go to boat, and then after that Ratnapura to Colombo I go to train. So then if the person is very good with methodology, then he definitely know your journey is wrong, because you cannot do that. Okay, so that's why you have to have a very good understanding regarding your methodology. You have to show how you reach your aim. So the way you reach your aim is your methodology. So you must have very sound understanding regarding your methodology. And actually, these areas are really interesting in this presentation, but it is not relevant for you at this stage. So when I do another session, I will explain from year after. Okay. So uh, you can ask any question now before I wind up this session. Any questions? No questions. This is very surprising, actually. It seems you don't
Ma'am,
have any questions.
actually, like, not that I can't use the word that we were groomed, but the whole class is more like into the quantitative research approach. So this
Mhm.
qualitative is something a little bit new to us, because like most of the people in the class are like, number related, number driven people. So I think that's why we were more into the quantitative. So I think
Mhm.
like right now I'll speak behalf of myself. Like I understand there's a huge dimension in the other side as well, because like rather than going into a theory, like if we can get a explanation from a person like you, now I think like we have to think about the other areas as well. So that's my view of the qualitative research right now.
Mhm. Yeah, it's important because in quantitative research, you look at in a certain areas only, but in qualitative, it's like more broad. You can see lots of things that you haven't seen before. So that's why it is important to do qualitative research. But unfortunately, there are very less number of qualitative researchers. So it is hard for students to learn, because every lecturer, they talk about quantitative stuffs, because that's the most easiest thing, and that's what they have done. So then students also follow that way, and they do all quantity, but the qualitative part is missing. That's why we encourage, please do more qualitative studies, because even myself, I was a quantitative researcher before, but I realized that the qualitative part is very interesting. And if you really want to generate in-depth knowledge, yes, that is the way. And also, you can be a specialist in that subject area. That's the most important thing. That's why I'm trying to do, and all other qualitative researchers do. Because if you develop your own theory, that is your theory at the end of the day. In quantitative study, you can't develop a theory. But these kind of things are very for academics they do it, because for myself I'm a lecturer, so that's why I do it. But if you just want to do your pass, your thesis, that's why people do quanti, because they just need the paper qualification. But if you want to be academic, it is really important to have a very good research background. So in that case, I encourage, please do more qualitative research. It's interesting. But the only thing is that you have to put effort and do some reading. That's okay. There are plenty of books actually. Do you have access to books in the library in Columbia University? Is there any books, or can you read online books?
At the moment, not online books, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh,
yeah, since everybody's working from home these days, so not much of access.
mm-hmm.
We access to what's available in the internet. That's it.
Okay. Oh, otherwise, I hope you can download some online reading books as well. So if I can download a couple of books from my library, from our library, I will share it with Sir, Suranga Sir. Then he will distribute it to you. At the same time, I will share Manchester Phrase Bank, and I will share this presentation as well. But don't worry about the whole presentation. I know it is a bit serious presentation. And at the same time, I will share Manchester Phrase Bank. The Manchester Phrase Bank, it provides very good guidelines for researchers to write their research from chapter 1 to conclusion chapter. Okay, it provides very good guidelines and the writing structure, so it's really interesting. I don't think you can download it from Sri Lanka, but last time also I shared it with other people, so I will email it to Sir, so he will distribute it to you as well.
Sure. Thanks.
Okay, any more questions? No questions? If you don't have any questions, we can wind up the session. And if you have any questions, you can email me as well. When I share my presentation, you can see my email address. So if you have any questions, you can email it to me as well. So then I wish you all the best for your research journey. So I hope one day you will share your research findings with us. So
Excuse me, ma'am. Can you share with your slide with Madhushan?
say it again.
Presentation.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you send your presentation?
Yeah, to whom should I send it? I initially thought I have to send it to Suranga, so isn't it? So to whom should I
Yeah,
send it?
Madhushan will handle the group. Madhushan?
Okay, so yeah, could you please, Madhushan, could you please send me your email address? Then I
Yeah.
will share the
Can
presentation.
I put it on the Zoom chat now?
Yes. Yeah. Then I will share the presentation and the Manchester Phrase Bank as well. And if I can download some qualitative research guidelines papers tomorrow, I will email that one as well.
All right.
Then you can read and have a look and yeah, start your qualitative research journey.
Yeah. Did you get my
Good luck,
email
everyone.
address?
Huh?
Did you get my email address? I just put it on the chat, the Zoom chat.
Let's have a look. Yeah, I got it. I will email
All
you
right.
tonight or tomorrow. For me, it's like late night now, so I will
Yeah.
email you tomorrow. Is that fine?
Sure. No problem. No problem.
All right. Yeah, if you have any questions, please just email me, and good luck for your research journey. Don't take it as a burden. Enjoy throughout that journey, because you can learn a lot and you can be a specialist in that particular field. Okay.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
All right. Thank you very much. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Good night.